welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Kellie De Leon with Treasure Data, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with David Chan, Managing Director and Customer Data Platform Practice Leader at Deloitte Digital. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Kellie.
You recently wrote a really interesting article about customer identity resolution and kind of how AI kind of machine learning kind of plays into that. I thought that was really interesting, and our listeners here might find that pretty valuable conversation. So you said that ID resolution doesn't quite get enough recognition. It's almost something like we skip over it in a way, but it has such an integral role in powering all the things that we need, like unified customer profiles and journey orchestration and all of these things that we seek for personalization and CX. So I'm curious if you would just share with us a little bit more about your perspective on deterministic versus probabilistic ID resolution and where you see businesses getting the most value there.
I help companies try to understand what their identity resolution strategy should be. And a lot of times, what I saw was that they struggled with this idea that they wanted, something more advanced than just deterministic identity resolution. But at the same time, they wanted full control over it. And to me, it was actually two opposing ideas that were essentially mutually exclusive. And my piece was really to try to explain why they're actually opposing views and that they can't actually mutually exist. And the idea is that, if you have a very deterministic approach to identity resolution, what you're doing is you're basically matching on match keys. You're saying, whenever I see, ID 123 and I see ID 123, or I see phone number, X and phone number X, match them together. Very straightforward. Why that's powerful? Even if you change out team members, it's a very simple set of rules that exactly how it got programmed in, right? It's very teachable. You can learn about it. The challenge with that is the value you get out of that oftentimes leads to what I call under collapsing, which means there might actually be 2 versions, 3 versions, 5 versions of Kellie, but if your deterministic match rules only can match on records where there's a key to match them on, you often find yourself in a situation where you don't see all the versions of Kellie. You actually see 5 versions of Kellie and not even knowing that they're actually separate people. It's just like Kellie plus 4 other people that look like Kellie. And what does that mean? It means you might not know the true customer lifetime value of customers. You might not be able to treat Kellie with the proper respect she demands because you actually diluted her worth to your brand. She shows up as 5 people divided by whatever the total spend is versus 1 person. For probabilistic, there's a lot of really interesting solutions out there that use graph technologies or more probabilistic methods to unify records. You can either try to build it yourself in-house using GraphDB tech, or you can purchase some of those identity resolution services from third parties. My argument is they're kind of the same, meaning they're both pretty black box in nature. And you might say, well, I understand from a third party why that would seem black box in nature. Why would the one that I build myself in? I don't know how many people who are listening today has actually had a team build an algorithm or a set of algorithms to perform some function. But I can tell you that usually it's impossible for people to actually break it down to even test, hey, what is the output supposed to be? If I'm feeding it in 1,000 signals, what is the actual outcome and how do I test every single iteration of it, right? Plus you factor in the human component. People get sick, people change jobs. So how are you going to then take that algorithm you built and then basically move it and operationalize it and have teams actually work on it. It's actually quite hard. And so if that is actually if you need to rebuild a propensity model, that's one thing, right? But if you're rebuilding your identity resolution that's using a set of algorithms that someone had built, but then they left, and then the new person left again, it becomes this thing that you probably have to now reinvest and build because it's so far removed from anyone's tribal knowledge of how to actually maintain it, test it, or anything. So to me, they're one and the same. Now the question I posed was, if the value though, like the trade-offs, right? So it's a set of trade-offs. One simpler, but it's easier to maintain. One, you can actually tell more definitively and a higher degree of accuracy that these are all Kelly, but you don't know how to like scale it or maintain it. Like, which one would you choose as an organization, right? And if you said the latter, right, I want the one that's more advanced, you have to accept that there's some level of black box to that solution. Like, there just is, right? There is no simple way that even if I gave you the source code, even if I gave you the model, right? You probably wouldn't know even know what to do with it or to maintain it. So that's sort of where I was coming at with that post.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And sometimes that desire for control can almost backfire and it is more out of your control in a way. So it is about thinking about that. What is the value and how, how's that going to fit long term and what is the right solution there? More broadly, going past ID resolution, obviously there's so many opportunities to apply AI and machine learning within so many different areas of marketing, but certainly in that area of personalization and the critical role that that plays in really delivering that exceptional CX. You touched on, whether it's just making sure that we understand, the full customer set of interactions and then be able to understand things like propensity or next best action and all of those sorts of things. But I'm just wondering, from where you sit and the advice that you provide to all of your clients, do you feel like AI is really the future of customer engagement and loyalty? Where is AI going as it relates to personalization, loyalty? What role is it going to play in the future?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the future, like hands down, 100%. You can quote me on it, right? And I don't think a lot of people will disagree with me. Only in that, when you think about what you're trying to do and what you're facing in the future, there's going to be more and more channels, right? You think about like 20, 30 years ago, what was customer experience? It was TV, it was radio, radio, right? It was print, like newspaper, direct mail, things like that, billboards. Then you go forward, right? uh, Websites, mobile. Then you go forward more. You had Snap for a little bit. You have Facebook or Meta. You have TikTok now, which is all the rage. But if you just follow that, right, the explosion of channels will probably just continue to grow, right? Um, and can't wait for what ads we're going to see in the metaverse, right? And so if you think about like the fact that not only will there be more channels of engagement, you're probably going to need more content to be
Mhm.
generated for consumption individually, kind of personalized for a person. So the personalization, sorry, the AI not only will have a hand in generating content, right, from a dynamic content generation perspective, but it'll also help you decide where and what content should be shown to certain people based off of their journeys, right? And today, um, we're probably in our infancy phase when it comes to journey orchestration, where there are journey orchestration tools where you have this like canvas where you can kind of plot out these journeys, and that makes sense to a certain extent. The challenge is those journeys are designed by humans. And if you want people to go down a very curated journey, that's fine. But what if someone said, hey, my goal is to get them to engage, but then to ultimately convert? What is the best journey for them? You're not going to be there trying to build, 20 journeys and trying to figure out like keep on evaluating the analytics and the insights and figure out, oh, which one should I move them to, right? You're probably going to move to a point where every point is like a journey split of sorts, where
Mhm.
they could choose your own adventure. And the only way that happens is leveraging things like AI and ML. The other thing I'll say is AI and ML is probably more accessible than it's ever been. There's actually no code, low code versions of AI ML like tools and personalization, and every single martech ad tech has some sort of data science in a box. That's part of it. I will say that the even though it's more accessible, it doesn't actually make it more easier. Um, it, because just because you can turn on this function doesn't mean you know how to test it. And how does that then integrate back to all the other channels that have their own, mini brains doing some sort of, personalization, right?
Mhm.
And recommendations. And if you're really taking it seriously that you want to create the ultimate orchestrated curated journey based off of what you know about the individual and what you think they have a proclivity to do in the future, you have to figure out how to tie all the different AI tools together in order to deliver that experience.
Mhm. And I think even we were talking about kind of maturity levels earlier. I think even organizations can think about how are they mapping almost their AI maturity over time, and what are the use cases and ways that they're implementing AI into their business. And I think it just because you can do it doesn't make it instantaneously easy. And thinking about that sort of strategic roadmap is a critical one as well. So
Yeah, definitely.
very interesting conversation. Well, we've been talking about digital transformation and machine learning and all of these very advanced things. So now I have to ask you the most analog question that I could possibly ask you at the end of our interview, which is, I saw a LinkedIn post where one of your colleagues was saying one of the most game changing skills that they had learned from you was the importance of using 00 flour in pizza dough, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But it seemed like at the time of that post, you weren't so sure how you felt about that being one of your claims to fame. So I have to ask, have you come to down to how you feel about that being one of your claims to fame?
I I think that was more in jest in the sense that that person had been on my team, and we talk about all these things around data and personalization AI. And when he said when he was leaving, unfortunately, he said, hey, that was sort of like the game changing thing for me. um, it I said it somewhat in jest, but at the same time it made me feel good about the fact that at the end of the day, whether I'm working here or he's working there, or it's really about your team and the connections you make, and the fact that he took something that wasn't work related actually made me feel better about my relationship with them, because it meant that we talked about things outside of work, like making pizza, um, and that was kind of cool.
I think that's really cool. And I love to end our interview on that note, because obviously we've been talking so much about data and technology and AI, but at the end of the day, we are still humans that have to work in these systems. And you started us off on the conversation. It is people and process and technology, but a lot of this is how are we working together and who owns what, and thinking about change management as well. So I think bringing it back to that human level, and how we do engage with each other, and what the impressions are that we leave with each other and how we work together is certainly just as critical a piece of it as what's the technology that you're going to plug in to get to that strategic point as well. So I think that's a good place for us to end our conversation. Thank you so much, David, for having this chat with me. And I want to just thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, for having me.